Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the RDX Sports Podcast. I'm Simon Head, and I said he'd be back. He's back. Mr. John Morgan, veteran journalist, Grind City Media, and CFFC lead commentator and man of many hats, joins us back on the show this week to bring us the last word on UFC 304. It's been a crazy week over here in Manchester and in the UK. What about you, John? How's it been for the last week or so? It must be unusual to have a pay-per-view and not actually be there for it, right?
It was, man. You know, I had CFFC duty, so I wasn't able to make it over there in England. I was hoping to get over to Manchester, even with that crazy middle of the night time that we had. You know, you and I went through that before, so I was kind of looking forward to doing the adventure again. But CFFC, duty's called there, so it took me out. But enjoyed watching it on TV. It was fun. And look, it's not bad to not have to fly back after the event either. But it's been good here, man. First of all, let me say the graphics package is looking sweet, man. I mean, really updating things since the last time I was here. It looks amazing. But it's good. It's just hot here. It's very, very hot here in Las Vegas. Record temperature, brother, 120 degrees recently. The hottest temperature ever recorded in Las Vegas. So it's hot.
I've been in Vegas where it's been like 100 degrees at night, and that messes with your head. When it's like 2 a.m, you've been out for a few frosty beverages, and you're just out on the street, and you could literally fry an egg on the sidewalk, as you call it. It really plays with your mind that it can be that hot when it's pitch black outside. It's really bizarre. Pretty hot over here.
Wait. Before we move on, what do you call a sidewalk? It's a sidewalk. What do you call it?
Pavement.
Pavement. Well, it's made of pavement, but it's a sidewalk.
Yeah. I know.
The important stuff. I just had to.
It's where the whole English American, US American thing kicks in. I'm not even going to talk about aluminium because we'll be here. But yeah, like it's been hot. It's been really hot here as well. But obviously not touching the temperatures that you guys are dealing with. But we don't have the AC. We've got crappy desk fans that really aren't doing the job for us. And I've had to turn mine off to record this. So you may see me sweating like Ted Stryker from Airplane by the end of this. But we'll see how it goes. If you suddenly see me disappearing from view and you going full screen, you know why. It's because I'm sort of just melting into my chair.
Off on the side.
Yeah. But I have to say, I'm still recovering from Manchester. I've never had jet lag before without actually getting on a plane, but that happened this week. Getting back from that was pretty bizarre. But we have to say, pretty crazy event, right? You know, I know there was that run of sort of 7 decisions in the middle of the card, which kind of took some of the impetus out of the event. It started off really well, but when we started to get towards the top of that card, John, it really sort of kicked in. And I think the fight that really started it was that Gregory Rodriguez Christian Leroy Duncan fight. Yes, it might have been the 7th of that run of 7 decisions, but that was an incredible performance from Gregory Rodriguez. We'll talk about him in a minute, but let's start at the top of the card because that's where all the business was done. Belal Muhammad dethroning Leon Rocky Edwards. And I've got to be honest with you, mate, when we went into this fight, and I couldn't find anybody who was going to pick Belal Muhammad. It was one of those events where we knew that Belal was competitive. We knew that he'd leveled up significantly since their last fight, possibly more than Leon had. But I couldn't find anybody, myself included, who thought that he would have leveled up enough to get the better of Leon on fight night. But it's how you go on the night, and undeniably, that was Belal Muhammad's fight. He was absolutely superb on the night. I was watching it from the stands. How did you see it? You know, watching it on TV with the commentary, it looked to me, even though the scorecards were kind of close, it was kind of a dominant performance, I thought.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll put myself in that same camp. But I thought it was going to be more competitive. I think a lot of people didn't think Belal deserved to be here. Thought he was going to get blown out of the water. I never saw it that way. I said it's going to be a much more competitive fight. But I was not in the camp of saying, and he's going to pull off the upset. You know, I just thought it was going to be more of a grinding type fight than maybe people were expecting. He was going to make it tougher on Leon Edwards than people were believing. But I'm telling you what, man. You know, I was sitting there watching with my wife actually, and in 15 seconds into the first round, he's got this big takedown. I just looked over at her. I'm like, this is going to be interesting. Like I was not expecting that. You know, I thought it'd be a whole lot of Leon defending against the cage, which he does very well. You know, I think sometimes he gives away rounds when he gets stuck in those positions, but he keeps himself out of danger and he stays upright. When he got taken down right away, I was like, oh my goodness, this is wild. So yeah, pretty dominant performance, to be honest with you. I mean, no question about it. I mean, it was 3 rounds to 1 going into the final round. There was a little bit of tension right at the end when Leon Edwards gets the late takedown and gets the ground and pound. you got the cut, and I didn't think that was good. But I did start thinking, like, is he gonna have another come from behind home run Hail Mary finish? I'm like, how insane would that be? And you can't count him out of it, right? Because I mean, the 5th round against Kamaru Usman, man, I was just like, well, Usman got another one here, and my goodness, if he didn't pull it off. So he added some late drama to keep it interesting. But man, really just can't give Belal Muhammad enough credit for that performance. That was an incredible performance. He made good on everything he said he was going to do, right? I mean, how do you not respect the run of Belal Muhammad knowing I'm not the most marketable guy, I'm not the trash talking guy, but I'm not going to do that. And you hear guys say it all the time, right? Well, guess what? If I just keep winning, they can't deny me. But it's hard to win all the time. Like, you kind of need a little help here and there sometimes to skip a few ranks ahead. Belal never got that help. He just had to keep beating everybody. And damn if he didn't go all the way to the top with that, just saying, I'll fight anybody. So amazing performance. And how do you not love the fact that he comes out of it going, you want me to fight Shavkat? I like Shavkat. Let's do that one. You know what I mean? You want me? I mean, he's saying all the right things. So pretty cool stuff to see from Belal Muhammad.
Yeah, and it's interesting how I know he and Leon are very different characters in many ways. Their journeys to the top are very similar. They're both guys who not the most fashionable guy on the fight card when they fight, not somebody who gives their opponent that much of an upside if they beat them. And they both had to take the long road to get to the title. And for Leon to get his shot against Kamaru to be losing, and then everyone had counted him out as the fight was progressing. This was a little bit different. Most people had counted Belal out before the fight even started. And I've heard some things since the fight that suggested Leon was not at his absolute best, but we can't take that away from Belal, because Belal was in there fighting the fight of his life. And who knows how that would have gone? If Leon was slightly better, would it have been enough? Maybe not. You just don't know. You just don't know. And it's how you do on the night. Great performance from Belal Muhammad. And the one thing I did notice when he was in Manchester, he was getting a lot of stick from some of the fans, but he was taking it all in good heart. And he was giving a bit back as well, which I think the British fans generally sort of appreciate. But yeah, he also had a fair amount of support in the building on Saturday night, which was interesting to see. But yeah, in terms of moving on, you think the Shavkat fight is the next one? You think that might be the most likely one? I think he's probably the top contender at the moment, I would say. But how quickly he can turn around, I don't know, because I saw him on his own show earlier today, and he's still all stitched up. He looks like he's going to take a little while before he's 100% and back in the gym again.
I love it. I think that should be the next fight. By the way, I did love the idea when people say, well, do you do Leon again? He's like, let him work back his way back up. Maybe about 3 years or so. Like, okay, all right. I love that. But no, listen, I think that would be great. And that's what I think is actually good about this. Even if you're not the biggest Belal Muhammad fan, right? You just, I don't like, I hear people out there, I don't like his style. I don't like this. What you should like is that this just shook up everything, right? So now all those names that maybe need a little bit more, Shavkat was maybe a win or two away. Now you don't have those existing names that are right there. You kind of freshen up. It really freshens up the division. So anytime you have a new champion come in, it really shakes things up a little bit. So I like that part. So even if you're not a Belal Muhammad fan, you should like that, because we're going to get some fresh matchups and some new title fights in there. And I think Shavkat's the way to go. I mean, I'm kind of interested by it, because I think that probably ends up having to be like a co-main event somewhere. I don't know that Belal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, it would be a headliner. Would probably be very ideal for Abu Dhabi in October, if there's still room on that card or something happens, they need it there. I think that'd be a good spot for it. But it would be a good matchup to have. And I love the fact he's welcoming it, man. Belal is again, I like when guys say, hey, man, I will literally fight anybody. If you think that's the one, then let's go. That's the toughest guy. Let's go. I love that. So, yeah, he's going to need to heal up a little bit. I'm sure he wants to celebrate a little bit as well. Went straight over to Abu Dhabi, though, right? I mean, how about that? Didn't go back home and celebrate. He's straight over to Abu Dhabi. So we'll see if that materializes. That seems to be, I think, a viable option.
Yeah, and credit to him. I heard him today, and he was saying it would be so easy for him to turn around and try and get a fight with a Michael Chandler, invite him up to the division, try and get a Dustin Poirier, maybe even go after someone like Colby, who, they can market their fights. But he said he's not going to do that. He said he's going to fight the highest ranked guy who's available. He will fight the next best guy. That's what champions are supposed to do, right? I love it. That's proper old school throwback stuff. And we need a bit of that, I think. Sometimes chasing money fight. All too often you see champions win a belt and immediately they want to jump a division, or they want to fight a money fight or whatever. I get it, because that's the biggest earning opportunity that you have. And when you're a champion, all doors are open for you. But it's kind of nice to see someone get in there. So, no, I'm the champion of this division. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to beat the next best guy, and just keep things rolling. Speaking
I
of the
love
next
it.
best guy, yeah, speaking of the next best guy, maybe he's not the next best guy. Maybe he's the best guy. Tom Aspinall at heavyweight. I think it's gone from being a debate to being an argument now. You know, it's not, you know, how will Tom Aspinall do? Is he as good as Jon Jones? For some people, it's how quickly will he beat Jon Jones? You know, it's gotten to that stage now where everybody you put him in the cage with, he dispenses with in ludicrously quick fashion. You know, he was in there with Curtis Blades in the co-main event, UFC 304. A guy who, admittedly, he was only a 15-second fight, that first one. Curtis looked pretty comfortable in there with him. Was landing some, or trying to land some stuff early on. And I thought to myself, this is going to be really interesting. Curtis is one of the few guys in the division who physically could stand up to Tom. He's 6'4". I think Tom's 6'5". Curtis weighed in pretty close to the heavyweight limit for that fight. Tom was 251, I think. So it was one of those where you thought, okay, how would this go? How would this go? Can Curtis get the fight to the mat? And if so, what will happen? Well, we didn't need to see that. We didn't see it. Tom just went out there, hit him with a two-piece, finished him on the ground. And now, you know, England, if they didn't have a superstar before, they've absolutely got one now. But where does he stand now, John? Because under normal circumstances, he would be, you know, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, or he would be an absolute lock to face the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And we've got this weird, I don't know how into Marvel you are, but we've almost got this multiversal situation going on here where Jon Jones is living in his little universe where he's the heavyweight champion. You got Tom Aspinall living in his world where he's the heavyweight champion. And we've got to kind of bring these timelines together, right? And see who the number one is. So I mean, first off, what was your take on his performance, and how do you think all of this is eventually going to sort itself out? Because it will need to sort itself out at some point, won't it?
It is. It's getting really interesting, right? And I'm a huge Jon Jones fan. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be, you know, up close for his entire career, from his UFC debut on, and just seeing the greatness that he has. And, you know, regardless of what you may say about the human being and the character outside of the cage, I mean, the greatness that he has within it is absolutely undeniable. And to be honest with you, it's the only fight I want to see right now for either two of these men right now. I want to see these two guys face off so well. This was another incredible performance for Tom Aspinall. Curtis Blades is no joke. In the same way that I thought Belal Muhammad was going to be more competitive than I thought a lot of people were giving him credit for, I thought the same thing for Curtis Blades. I'm like, you know, write him off at your own peril. Again, I was picking Tom Aspinall, but I thought, hey, man, this might be a lot more challenging than what you're expecting. And it absolutely was not. I mean, set him down with a jab and pounded away with punches. And I absolutely love his time on the microphone. I don't know that I've ever heard it put any better than that, right? Like, I'm not going to talk trash about Jon Jones. I'm not going to insult his legacy. I'm not going to cast doubt on his legitimacy as a champion. All those things that you could see people normally might want to do. And he just said, I just think I'm better than you. And I want to prove it. I think I can beat you in a fight. And I love that, right? Because that is at the heart of a competitor. That is the biggest dig you can get. You know, you don't got to talk about my family. You don't got to talk about my life. You don't got to talk about that. It's just like, look, man, I just sizing you up and I think I'm better than you. Like, I can beat you. And if you think I'm wrong, come prove it. It's like pure, simple, beautiful genius. And you know it got the attention of Jon Jones. You know, I like the fact also that Tom Aspinall says, I'll be the backup. I'll go be ready. I'll stay ready. I love that. You know, some people, we talk about what some people do. Some champions might go, I'm not going to take that role. You know, I'm better than that. I'm bigger than that. I'm nobody's backup. I'm not going to be second fiddle. I love it. He's like, no, I'm going to stay ready because you never know what might happen. And I might jump in there. And it's right. I mean, this thing has been rescheduled, delayed, put off. You don't know what's going to happen. So there's a possibility that he gets in there. If he doesn't get in there and Jon Jones and Stipe fight in November the way we think they're going to in Madison Square Garden, I still don't know that it's 100% that Jon, if he wins, which I think a lot of people believe he will, goes on to immediately face Tom Aspinall. I think it would be a shame because I'll be honest with you, I can't think of a fight I want to see more in the sport of mixed martial arts right now than Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. It's that simple, and I think I'm not alone in that feeling. I think it would do gangbusters in the office, and you know what I mean. I think it would be good for everybody involved. So I really, really, really hope it comes to fruition.
Yeah, I think you echo the thoughts of pretty much any MMA fan who has watched both those guys fight. One question for you on something that you just brought up, the backup thing. I thought this. I was in a press conference, and I meant to ask Tom about it, and to be honest, it slipped my mind because something else sort of crept in, and I was talking to him about something
And
else.
it was
But
7 a.m. in the morning.
oh man, I was absolute toast at that point. I was such a mess. But the whole backup thing, is that not a complete red herring? Is that not a complete, you know, it's just not a thing, right? Because there's no way John Jones is going to accept a short notice fight with Tom Aspinall, is he? Like,
Yeah.
there's no chance of that. Putting him on as a backup is like, it's pointless, because if he's preparing for Stipe, he's ready for Stipe, he's had all this time getting ready for Stipe, is he really going to say, let's say, like the Tuesday before fight week, Stipe injures himself in his last workout or whatever it is, don't worry, Tom's the backup, we'll bring him in, or even worse, in fight week, something happens with Stipe, don't worry, Tom's the backup. You really think John, who is the ultimate pragmatist, and I say that as a compliment to him, but he's the ultimate pragmatist when it comes to his career. He does not take decisions that he doesn't want to make, right? We've seen this before, controversially, to the anger of the UFC brass on occasion. He's his own man and he makes his own decisions. He's never taken Tom Aspinall on short notice. Surely, tell me I'm wrong, John, but I don't think I am.
You're not. And yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, and it's not just speculation, right? It's history. I mean, we can look at the story of UFC 151 and we can go, we know Jon Jones doesn't do this. You know what I mean? And now at this point in his career, he's even less likely to do it, right? I mean, like he's from all
Yeah.
we can tell, like financially, he needs nothing. And legacy wise, he's the greatest of all time. Like, I don't think you can argue against the fact that he's the GOAT. If you're having a GOAT conversation, you have to at least have him in the discussion. I do believe he's the greatest of all time, but you cannot legitimately have that discussion and not talk about Jon Jones in it. So it's like, he doesn't need this. You know what I mean? He doesn't need this fight financially. He doesn't need this legacy wise. And he's shown in the past that, as you said, he doesn't like to do short notice like fights like that because he's talked about it. He wants to study. He wants to pour over every piece of tape. He wants to have every piece of preparation done. You know, he doesn't believe that his greatness is sheerly because he's just some athletically gifted freak who, is towers above everybody in terms of that. It's because he believes his preparation is as much as part of the process and the success as anything else. So unfortunately, you're right. I hate to say it because I was like, good on you, man. You're going to go there and be the backup. And then my co-host at Grind City Media, Eric McMahon, posed that same question. And I'll be honest, I just looked at him. I'm like, I hate you because you're right. You know what I mean? And it's like, you're right. There's zero chance. I mean, like maybe John is like, well, I don't have much time left, and I don't like this Tom Aspinall kid, and I've been studying him anyway, so let's do this. But if history is giving us any indication, no, there's absolutely no way he takes it.
I guess, like, if you're John, there's kind of two directions of looking at this. If he looks at Aspinall and says, "I've got this guy, I can beat this guy, I've got no problems fighting him," then maybe we'll see this fight. But if he's not 100% convinced up here that he's got Tom Aspinall's number, you then have to weigh up the negatives of it. What's worse, facing him and losing, or not facing him and being slated for not facing him? They're the two negatives that come out of this situation if he doesn't fight. Or sorry, if he either does or doesn't fight Tom Aspinall. He goes in and smokes Tom Aspinall, goes off into the sunset. Absolutely a lot greatest of all time. Greatest, then you're talking great heavyweight as well. But if he opts to not face him, what does that say? Is it better to face him and lose or
No,
not face him? Do
it's
you know what I
better
mean?
not face him. Yeah, no, but to be honest,
It's better to not lose.
it's better to not
You know,
face him, I would say. It's like, we
yeah,
could look at Habib Nurmagomedov and we could say, Habib, man, like, there were a lot of guys he didn't face in his time, and he can be like, 29-0, brother. What do you want me to
yeah,
do? Like, I don't know, And I think Jon
yeah.
Jones could do the same and be like, listen, hey, I like this Aspinall. I mean, it's real easy for John to be like, hey, no, this Aspinall kid looks good. That looks good. Like, let him win the undisputed title first, right? Let him defend this thing a
Yeah.
little bit. Hey, it's his time, and I'm happy for him. And he can totally like little brother. I'm like, no, I'm proud of this young Tommy kid. You know what I mean? He looks good,
I
but
can totally see that happening as well.
I've been doing this for 10 years. How about that? I've been doing this for a
Mm,
decade. I've been at the top. When little Tommy was in diapers, I was defending world titles. You know what I mean? So
mm.
thanks.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to see it. I know, like in the past, we've spoken about what kind of fight could they do in Allegiant Stadium. That's the kind of fight they could do in Allegiant Stadium. I know
100%.
Dana doesn't like stadium shows. He was asked about it again this past weekend, and he's very much against that idea. But if you were going to do one, and you were going to do it in a climate where you're not going to have a problem, i.e., Las Vegas, where it's stinking hot, and you needed a big fight for it. Can you do anything bigger than Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall? You just can't.
This is my hope, and I don't have a crystal ball here, so there's definitely no. But this is my hope in my heart, and this is no disrespect to Stipe Miocic in November, but I would like to see Jon Jones win that fight, and then International Fight Week 2025, Las Vegas. John Bones Jones, Tom Aspinall, Allegiant Stadium. That is a stadium fight. I mean, I understand why Dana doesn't, right? I mean, you get the chills just thinking about it. Like, and I get it. I understand. Like I've been fortunate enough to be at every single one of the UFC stadium experiences. And what Dana says is right. Like it's not the same experience. It's just not. Now, there's something cool about being in a building with 70,000 people, but those people in the back, he used to make that joke about like, it's like watching two ants fight on a matchbook or something like that, and it's true. Now, Allegiant Stadium, the idea would be Cowboy Stadium because that center video board that you have in Dallas is amazing, but that stadium is even bigger. I mean, it's like 100,000 plus when it's like standing room only and all that. But to do it in their backyard, to do it at Allegiant Stadium, I mean, we're already knocking the Sphere off the list, right? We're getting that done in
Yeah.
September. The UFC likes to own Las Vegas, so to do that at Allegiant Stadium, like, I believe that would be the fight to make and the venue to do it.
I just so hope this. It's one of those things where, like, every ounce of common sense in my head says this fight ain't happening. But this is MMA. Crazy stuff happens in MMA, and all it needs is for Jon Jones to say, "Do you know what? Sod it. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's see how good this kid is." Right? He thinks he's better than me. I think I'm better than him. What a way to go out. If I lose to him, it passes the torch. If I beat him, I'm passing him the torch anyway. Let's do it. Let's make the biggest fight in UFC history. Put it in a stadium. Get 80,000 people in there. Let's go out on a legacy fight, the ultimate legacy fight. So, old generation, new generation. It'd be awesome.
It would be incredibly, and for John, and again, at that point, if Jon Jones beats Tom Aspinall at Allegiant Stadium, you do not have a greatest of all time discussion anymore. There's not
No.
even a talk about who is the greatest of all time. Like, the guy that destroyed two divisions over a decade plus, and because look, Tom Aspinall, if he lost to Jon Jones, could very well come back and win his next 10 fights in a row, be the reigning champion, defend, set all kinds of records. But John will be like, no, that's cute. I mean, it's amazing what he's done, but you know what happened when he stepped in there against Big Daddy. You saw it. So, I mean, the bragging rights that he would have for eternity. And like I said, the greatest of all time isn't even a discussion at that point. You just say, well, we know Jon Jones is one. Who's two? Let's start the debate at who's number two.
Yeah, no, it's amazing to think that there is a heavyweight who we think could be competitive against him, and we're at that stage, and I'd love to see it. Something that a lot of people were looking forward to seeing at UFC 304 was the demise of Mr. Paddy Pimblett. Didn't happen. Did not happen. This man, for all of the haters that he gets, and he's got a lot of fans over on my side of the pond, but there's a fair few detractors knocking around in MMA circles. Thought that Bobby Green was the guy to sort of expose him, if you like, fraud check him, whatever the terminology that people like to use on the internet is these days. Paddy went out there and produced a superb display. Bobby kind of gave him the opening that he was looking for a little bit by shooting for the takedown, but the finish was absolutely outstanding. Submission of the year contender, I would say. Absolutely brilliant performance. And now Paddy Pimblett is a ranked UFC lightweight, and who knows what's going to happen next. I know what he wants to happen next, and I pray that the UFC does it. He wants Renato Moicano, and he wants a season of The Ultimate Fighter. Take my money. Sign it up. Sign it up. Let's have it. Two of the most entertaining people in the UFC lightweight division on a season of The Ultimate Fighter would be outstanding. You know Hanato pretty well. He'd go for that, wouldn't he?
Oh, he'd absolutely go for it, man. I mean, he wants all that smoke, the verbal smoke, the fighting smoke. Like, he loves that stuff. He loves to put on a show. Money Moicano now, man. He gets it, right? I mean, he understands that the entertainment value means a lot. It's not just about wins and losses. We talked about Belal Muhammad and the impressive route that he had to know that, like, it was just about wins and losses for him. But, not everybody can go that route. And you want to kind of bring some entertainment value if you can as well. And I think they definitely go for it. And I'd love to see it. Great performance for Paddy Pimblett. I think it's important to point out that, like, I think Bobby Green shot for the takedown because he wasn't necessarily feeling things were going especially fantastic on the feet, which I don't think a lot of people expected. This was a complete performance from Paddy Pimblett. And I get it. I understand he has his detractors. I think anybody that's bold and brash and speaks the way they do is going to get some of that, but that's part of the fun, right? He's a great salesman. And at the end of the day, man, then he comes back and he talks about, like, mental health and men feeling comfortable opening up about that stuff. And he's wearing the armband for the young child. And, it's just, that's genuine stuff from the heart. You can tell he's got a good heart, and he's a good person as well. So, I get it. I understand. I think part of it is anytime somebody gets attention a little early, people think that, oh, who's this guy? Why is he getting this love? They want to hate, but I don't see how you can hate on the guy. And this was a complete performance. To me, it was his most impressive performance to date. And he earned that ranking spot. And I'd love to see him on The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, he's great on camera. He'd have some fun. Him and Moicano would have some fun going back. I would love to see that. I would definitely watch it.
Yeah, and the thing that he said was he's got no animosity towards Moicano at all. His reason for doing it is he thinks it'd be hilarious. He thinks it'd be great fun, and he also thinks that the fight would actually mean something in the division. It's the perfect matchup, and I think it's something that warrants more than just your regular pre-fight build-up. They could put a season of Tough on it. It would also help get Tough going in terms of, you've got the Brazilian market, you've got the UK market, two markets that might be a little bit more open to watching seasons of Tough. You could do Team UK versus Team Brazil. They haven't done that sort of nation v nation thing for a while.
Yeah.
So, there's all sorts of different permutations you could go. But I agree with you. That was by far his best performance. He looked huge as well in the cage. I've got to be honest. Like, he's grown into his body. I know we see the ballooning of weight between fights, but he was shredded like 2 weeks out. He was absolutely same with Molly McCann. Actually, both of them have really nailed it because Molly moved down a weight. I know it didn't go her way on Saturday night. Great performance by Bruna Brazil in that fight, by the way. But yeah, they're both absolutely shredded, and he's huge. He looked almost looked like a welterweight in there against Bobby Green. Really looking forward to seeing how they book him. Moicano seems like the slam dunk pick for me, but Moicano's got some business to attend to against Benoit Saint-Denis, so that's going to be an interesting one. Benoit's a big, strong lightweight. That's going to be an interesting. But I don't necessarily think a defeat in that one stops.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, you can't assume anything in that fight with Benoit Saint-Denis. That dude is, a wrecking machine. So you can't assume anything. But I guess that's exactly what I want to say. And you hit it spot on. I think even if he comes up short, still put him together. You know what I mean? The entertainment value is going to be there. It's not like he's got an undefeated record already anyway. You know what I mean? So, like, coming off a loss, it takes a little steam off it or whatever. But I don't think it makes it impossible because the two of them together would be great. It was a great shout. It really was. It was a great suggestion, and I think they would be hilarious together.
Yeah, and just quickly wrapping up the main card of 304 before we move on to matters ahead of us. Gregory Rodriguez getting the win over Christian Leroy Duncan. First observation I had from before that fight, I saw both lads in the hotel. I've met Christian before. He's a big boy. He's a big lad, and had an elevator ride with him at the host hotel. He's huge. Then I saw Gregory Rodriguez sort of at the very peak of his weight cut, so at his absolute smallest, and he was still massive. So I thought, my goodness me, once he reloads, he's going to look like an absolute tank. And he fought like one. Christian Leroy Duncan, really good technical striker, but Rodriguez is just relentless. Huge performance from him, and there's got to be big fights coming his way after that, surely.
Absolutely. I felt like this was his best performance as well, man. If he fights like that, like it, man, that freedom of knowing that, like, I trusted my power, I trusted my striking, but I've also got world class jiu-jitsu and I can change levels anytime you want. And like when you face somebody that is that free and powerful on the feet, but also is willing to turn to that grappling when they need to, and just timing at the right time. When I think I'm striking, you shoot on me. When I think I'm defending a takedown, you're throwing bombs at me. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna make him dangerous. So yeah, I walked away from that thinking, well, I mean, we've seen Gregory Rodriguez come up. We've seen him rise. We've seen his performances, and I've always been impressed with him. But this one, I was like, man, if that dude can keep putting it together like that, he's going to be a problem in this division.
Yeah, there's not many escape routes when you're fighting a guy like that, right? There's not normally you look at it and go, okay, his wrestling's a bit, a bit weak, or his jiu-jitsu's a bit weak, or his striking's a little bit lightweight. He's got every single tool in the toolkit, and he's got that relentless come forward pressure that he's in your face from minute one, and it's your job to deal with him. Otherwise, he's going to deal with you. And
like literally, you're going to say
Christian
like
Leroy Duncan is a real learning fight for him.
You're like literally you're trying to game plan for Gregory Rodriguez. Like, look, here's the deal. As long as we can just stay out of his submissions because they're dangerous, probably not want to grapple, like avoid the takedowns, and then also just make sure we don't get hit by him beyond the feet because he's got knockout power. As long as we can avoid, his striking and his grappling, I think we're got sorted. This, guys. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah, he's like a quadruple threat. He's a dangerous man. He's kind of a fun guy to be around by all accounts as well.
Super nice guy. Super nice guy.
He turned up at the post-fight press conference wearing a very slick suit. So no, he looks like he's going to be a problem, as you say, for whoever he faces at 185 pounds. First fight on the card, fascinating matchup. This one, Arnold Allen edging Giga Chikadze. Close fight, really close fight. I thought this was going to be a tricky one for Arnold just because Giga is just so clever and slick on the feet. His control of range is probably as good as anybody in that weight class, right? And it felt like it took Arnold a round to really gauge everything. And then eventually he was able to sort of have that extra half step and put the pressure on. But for a guy that was coming in off 2 straight defeats, that's a really awkward matchup to take. But he got the win and he can move on, and there's some bigger fights down the road for him. But tough fight, that one.
It was a tough one, and I know that they've been having a little chirping back and forth on social media afterwards about it all as well, which has been kind of funny to see unfold. I just thought ultimately Giga needed to engage a little bit more, and I think because he didn't, he allowed Arnold Allen to really kind of set the tone to that fight in the latter stages of it. And man, a big win for Arnold Allen. I think a lot of people were kind of jumping off the bandwagon, right? But it's like, man, he had a couple losses, but look who he lost to. Like, come on, man. What are we talking about here? Like, so a lot of people are kind of questioning his skill level, but to beat another elite featherweight like this was a big win for him. So a solid performance.
Yeah, I mean, his fight with Max Holloway, I was there for that, and he could have won that fight if he'd started the fight earlier. He basically gave the first round or two away because he was just he was kind of having too much of a look at him in the first couple of rounds. Once he put his foot on the gas towards the back end of the fight, he was super competitive in that fight, and I think he came away from that kind of kicking himself a little bit. Back into a 3-round fight, you literally have no room for maneuver. He found himself a round down. I think he probably had a bit of a talking to from his corner. And then he came out and did what he needed to do. Interested to see how they book him moving forward. That featherweight division is absolutely stacked top to toe with killers. So, whatever they book for him is going to be a good fight. That was UFC 304. UFC 305 is coming up. But let's leapfrog that for a sec because we got some news over the course of the weekend. UFC 306 at the Sphere or Sphere. Is it Riyadh Season presents Noche UFC 306?
It's actually
or something.
It's presented by Bud Light. It's Riyadh Season, Noche UFC, O'Malley versus Dvalishvili, presented by Bud Light.
Trips off the tongue, doesn't it? Trips off the tongue.
Or 306, if you like. Whichever one you feel is smoother.
I'll stick with 306. But yeah, main event, obviously you hinted at it there in the elongated event title. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili for the bantamweight title. Absolutely huge fight for the division. Massive matchup. Real styles clash. Is this the right event to be putting this at the top of the card? Like, it's a love letter to Mexico, but O'Malley kind of fights a bit like a Mexican, I think. He's got that sort of stand-up boxing style. He loves to stand and bang. I think Merab has got that larger-than-life personality that will hopefully bring even more out of O'Malley during fight week. I think it's a great fight. What do you make of the booking?
Well, I mean, Marab's a genius, right? I mean, he's been repping the Mexican flag as of late, Mexican Marab, and so here he gets it on the Noche UFC event. I do, it's still a pay per view event, right? And so even though you wanted, all the fights to go and feature a Mexican athlete, Alexa Grasso versus Valentin Shevchenko is a big fight, but it's not as big as O'Malley versus Dvalishvili, and you're still trying to sell pay per views, and so, I do think that even if it doesn't, contain a Mexican athlete in the matchup, it's still a hell of a matchup, and I think people are going to be drawn to it. And this card is going to be unbelievable. This event is going to be unbelievable. I mean, just being here in Las Vegas and seeing the concerts that have come through and knowing the way people have walked out of those shows and just raved at this insane facility to see a UFC event in it. I'm as excited about this event as I am any on the calendar right now, and to me it really doesn't even matter what the matchups are, like just to see what they do technologically and to see how this thing, if it's going to be one of the most unique events of all time for the UFC. So I'm excited about it, so I'm pumped up for this. It wouldn't matter to me what they put on the card, but this is a hell of a fight, man. This is a big fight. I mean, Sean O'Malley is phenomenal. Sean O'Malley, a guy that I think a lot of people wanted to deny, along the way, and think that he's just a clown and he's just a hair and he's this. And now you're starting to go like, oh no, this guy's actually pretty damn good at what he does. So he's a phenomenal fighter. But Marab is a problem for anybody. I mean, I said it from the very beginning. He had kind of a rough go in his start to the UFC, but I'm like, this dude's gonna fight for a title someday. I mean, when you can literally just push forward for 25 minutes with zero hesitation and no concern about gassing whatsoever, that's hard. It's physically demanding, it's psychologically and mentally demanding for your opponent to know what they're up against. So stylistic, he is problematic for anybody in the division. So I love this fight. I really love this fight. They've done a great job of promoting the thing on social media, so they're going to embrace the whole Sphere side of it as well. This is going to be a phenomenal card. So I love this card. I love the matchup.
Yeah, I think if you're a fighter who finds themselves having to fight Marab, you should always demand that it happens at like the absolute limits of altitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have him in Salt Lake City, you have him in La Paz in Bolivia. You just go anywhere where the air is.
Are we doing Machu Picchu anytime soon? Let's bring him out to Machu Picchu. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Anything to put a dent in that gas tank, because he's just relentless, absolutely relentless. Really looking forward to the matchup. Have you been to the Sphere, by the way? Have you been in there and seen anything at all in there? I know some of our friends and colleagues have had the chance to be in there. I know Kenny, who does a MMA roadshow with you. I think he's been in there for a gig, right?
Yeah, he actually.
So what's it like? What's it like in there?
It's amazing. Yeah, I got to see. It was funny. I wasn't initially going to go, so I haven't been to a concert there. I saw what they call the Sphere Experience. There's basically essentially a movie, is what you would call it, Postcards from Earth. But I went opening weekend. It was funny. I wasn't going to buy tickets to it because I think it was like $90, $100 a ticket. But it's just like a movie. I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of expensive. And obviously, if I buy something, I got to buy something for my wife and my kid too, because we all three got to go. And I wasn't going to. But then it was funny. We got to see a demonstration of Cosm in Salt Lake City. And it was like maybe like 3 weeks or a month before the Sphere was opening. And I literally went back to my hotel room that night after seeing Cosm. And I was like, oh, hell, we're going to the Sphere. And I bought tickets that night. And it was amazing. It really is cool. My kid nailed it. He was like, he said, essentially like VR, but without wearing, a goggles or a helmet or anything like that, because the screen is wider than your field of vision. And the resolution is so high that it just tricks you into like feeling like you're there. And then you add in the audio components of it and how, I mean, it's just the haptic feedback in the chairs that you're sitting in. And I mean, it's a super, super cool experience. If anybody is in Vegas, I highly recommend they take a little bit of time to go see it. You know what I mean? If any band that you like is playing there, go see it, because it'll be the best show that band ever does. And if you like them, you're going to love it. So it is just it's an amazing facility. It's really funny because when they were building it here in Las Vegas, basically I think all of us as locals were like, why do we need another venue? Like, we got plenty of venues, and like, so what? It's in the round. I mean, like, all right, cool. Like, whatever. It's a Sphere. Like, I've seen the Globe in Stockholm. It's pretty cool, but whatever. And then they turned on the outside of it, and we were all just like, whoa, what is this again? Hold on. Tell me more about that Sphere. What is that about? So yeah, it's a pretty cool facility. And I'm telling you, man, I am fired up about UFC 306 and getting a chance to see what the UFC does with it.
Yeah, and you mentioned the co-main. that's going to be an absolute banger as well. Valentina Shevchenko looking to get her title back. Trilogy fight with Alexa Grasso. Grasso winning the first one by submission. Second one going to a split draw in a very, very close fight. Now we're going to get the trilogy fight, and Valentina's going to be all fired up for that one. Alexa's going to be carrying the hopes of a nation on Mexican Independence Day. It's the kind of the perfect storm and a great showcase for women's MMA. Two of the pound for pound best in their sport. You know, it should be a cracker.
And I'm glad it's this fight, right? Because when they did the big reveal for the Sphere show, Alexa Grasso was there and she was like, I'm fighting. We're like, well, Shevchenko and Valentina saying, I don't know if I want to fight on that day. I don't know if I want to give her the kind of quote unquote home field advantage of Noche UFC. And Alexa was like, if she doesn't, that's fine. I'll fight Manon Figueroa. And look, Manon Figueroa is very close to getting a title fight as well. And she's a force in the division. And I'm looking forward to seeing that fight eventually, whether it be against either one of these ladies. But I need this trilogy to be finished first. You know what I mean? This is the fight that needed to happen first. So I'm so glad that even though Shevchenko may have been a little bit hesitant to step in and take it in this situation, I'm glad she did, because this is the fight that needed to happen. So I'm looking forward to it, man. And then, man, Ortega and Lopez is on there, rescheduled again. I mean, we all thought that was going to be an absolute banger. So I love that it's happening here. Glad they got Raul Rosas Jr. on the card. I mean, you got to have Chi Wee Wee on there, right? I mean, against the man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. I absolutely cannot wait for that show. It's funny, my wife is born and raised in Mexico, and she actually went to the first Noche UFC event, and she had a great time, man. She's like, she walked away from that event and was like, man, that is so cool what the UFC did. She's like, it made me proud as a Mexican to see that. So
that's cool.
This one, I was gonna buy her a ticket to go see this one too, and then the prices came out, and I said, honey,
maybe not.
I love you very much, and I think you know that. We've been together a long time, but I'm not able.
I'll buy you the pay-per-view.
100%. I'm like, you will have the pay-per-view. I'll make sure there's some popcorn here for you and some sodas, and you will enjoy it at the house, because I'm not paying $3,000.
That's incredible. What's the capacity in that place, by the way?
I think they say like 17,000, which is crazy, man. So I'm anxious to see it. And I'm telling you what, like the upper level, the stairs are kind of steep, and it's weird. It gives you like this weird like vertigo. It's something about the round or the perspective. Like it gives you this feeling you're about. There's going to be some accidents from people that are consuming alcohol, is all I'm saying. Just look out for that. Look out for that. Watch for bodies rolling down the staircase. That'll be the one thing I'll say to watch out for in the upper level.
I've been to the San Siro in Milan, which the rake on those seats is pretty steep, and we'd had a few frosty beverages when we were in there watching Inter Milan. It was the day that they won Serie A, so it was a massive party. And I just thought to myself, if I fall down these stairs, the first thing I'm going to hit is the pitch.
Yeah,
literally, it was just. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the Sphere, because they're going to be really drinking in the Sphere, and
100%.
It looks incredibly steep. Like I don't know what kind of safety measures are in place to stop people from just barreling down and skittling people on the way down.
I know, like when they first opened it, like there was some controversy because nobody knew what really to expect, and the U2 shows, some of the first concerts, they were like, you got to sit down. Like you can't, they didn't allow people to stand up. And I'm telling you, it's smart. Like people are, and they wouldn't allow people to stand up. I'm assuming that's still the case, that you can't stand up. I don't know. But it's like a necessary thing. Like in the show that I went to, somebody fell while they were just like walking out. They fell down. They had to bring in the paramedics. Like it's so, yeah. As excited as I am, I am, somebody's going to fall. It's just going to happen.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. It's going to be a crazy night. I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm also interested to see how it translates to a TV experience as well, because obviously when you're there, you're going to really get the benefit to see it. I don't know whether they're going to do any kind of. I know they did some playing around with Meta a while back at the Apex, doing some sort of VR based stuff, and I wonder whether they can do anything with that for people who've got like a. Was it a Meta Quest? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Where they've got the headset, whether you can plug in and have a virtual seat and pay a little bit extra on top of your pay-per-view and get a virtual seat. I don't know. That might be something that they can do. But just seeing it as a bog standard TV watcher, which is what I'll be on fight night. I'm interested to see how it all comes together. But yeah, it's gonna be pretty spectacular. What is also going to be spectacular, Mr. Morgan, in Perth, Australia, UFC 305. This is a fight I've been looking forward to seeing for what feels like years now. I know that we've had a little bit of a delayed build up to this. We're going to get Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. The title's going to be on the line, and it feels like they're doing it in the right place. They're doing it in Australia, which is it's kind of home ground for Izzy, but it isn't.
Right.
He's obviously a Kiwi. He's a Kiwi from New Zealand. But there's also a connection between South Africa and Australia and New Zealand. Anyway, they're kind of tight sporting rivals on like the rugby field and all that sort of stuff. And I know Dricus is really into his rugby. So he felt quite at home in some of the pre-fight stuff over in Australia. But this is going to be a huge fight, and I'm not sure this is going to be the only time we see these two fight. I think this could be the first of a couple, or maybe three. But what are your early thoughts? We're going to get that in a month or so. But it's going to be a huge one, isn't it?
It's a big one. I think it would have been really cool if this was the debut in Africa. I mean, there's been a couple times that the debut in Africa would have been amazing. I mean, when you had the Three Kings, all as champions, would have been incredible. This would have been just, I don't know if it would have been safe to have it over there, but it would have been amazing. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, the tension in this fight, I do hope, look, man, we love fights between, skilled athletes, right? I mean, we love that.
Yeah.
When there's some bad blood on the line and it's legitimate bad blood and not made up and just for show, like, that kind of adds to it. You know what I mean? It just does. When you know that two people hate each other, it's like, whoo, they're going to settle their differences. Let's go. It does add to it. This one is one that has at times teetered on a little bit of uncomfortable for me in certain situations. But I noticed, the on sale press conference that they had for it was tense, but not, over the top as it was in their initial in cage encounter. So I hope we stay more along those lines. I'm anxious to see what fight week plays out like. But this is a hell of a fight. This is as I think as big of a rivalry fight that you can have in the UFC right now. I mean, this is just the tension that's there and everything that's between them. It's interesting, and it's a big one for Israel Adesanya, right? I mean, at one point looked like he was like almost untouchable, living in the Matrix. You know what I mean? And now he's had some struggles, and Dricus du Plessis. A lot of people will technically break him down and say that I don't think the guy's that good, but look at what he keeps going out there and doing. He may not necessarily, it may look a little awkward sometimes. It may not be the most fluid, beautiful looking game, but it's effective. So I'm excited for this one. And like I said, the tension between these two, the press conference that we're going to get, the face-offs that we're going to get. I mean, it's going to build. It's going to be big, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, and du Plessis is a tank of a man at 185 pounds. I remember he came over and fought in the UK for KSW. He was the welterweight champion of KSW at the time. He'd knocked out Roberto Soldic. So for those people out there who know their MMA will know Roberto Soldic. He's an absolute savage. He knocked out Roberto Soldic, and they had the return fight in London, and Soldic stopped him to win the title back. But that is the only time that I think he's been stopped in his entire career, as far as I'm aware. Certainly with strikes. And he's filled out into his body even more. He's huge at 185 pounds. He could easily be a solid 205er without any question. But the thing with Dricus is he doesn't give that air of being a technician, does he? You compare, they're very yin and yang in terms of their fighting styles. You've got Izzy, who is a proper sort of striking specialist, and you've got Dricus, who is just an absolute juggernaut, battering ram, kind of come forward and just overwhelm you until he's broken you. So I'm fascinated to see how this goes, because typically on paper, the sniper would win the fight, assuming that they're sort of physically well matched. But I just think Dricus is going to be so much bigger than him on fight night. I really do. Maybe not height wise, but just sheer bulk. But it's a really interesting one. And just to touch on the Africa thing, Dana White was asked about this in the press conference in Manchester, and they're closing in on trying to get something done in Manchester by the sound of it. And the thing that he said is the biggest likelihood is it will be South Africa that they do their debut in. So I know there's been talk of other places as well over the last year or two, but it looks like they're zeroing in on South Africa. Now, whether that's because of Dricus, probably not. Probably from an infrastructure perspective, South Africa's probably a better bet. But yeah, so if he gets through this fight,
having Dricus as champ doesn't hurt. But yeah, that's what I've heard is in South Africa, just from an infrastructure and an operational logistical standpoint, it's the easiest to do business. But yeah, if Dricus wins this, I mean, man, I mean, I would imagine that would expedite everything, right?
That's the
Everybody would want
time,
to see
right?
it.
You pull the pin on that and you just make it happen. And I mean, could be a rematch, could be Strickland rematch. Blimey, can you imagine him in Strickland in South Africa? That'd
Oh.
be that would be interesting. But yeah, no, absolutely huge matchup.
Or could you imagine Israel Adesanya winning this fight, and let's say it's not a rematch, but he just gets to go headline in South Africa? Can you imagine the nonsense that he would be talking
Oh
there? Boy,
wow,
he would be letting
yeah.
Drickus have it, whether they were fighting each other or not. Man, it would be unbelievable.
Oh
So
my goodness,
I
yeah.
look, I tell you that'll be one. I look forward to that. The Africa debut, I look forward to that. That's one that I will definitely make the trip to for sure.
Yeah, it's there's lots going on with the UFC in terms of their development. It feels like they're starting to look more internationally again now, and having the only thing about the show at the weekend. Why are they doing it in the middle of the night, John? Like, surely they don't need to. Are they losing that much money by not doing it
Yes.
in the morning
Yeah.
your time? Is it that much of a drop off?
Yeah, from what I've heard and the numbers that it's incredibly significant.
Right.
It's just so hard. I mean, the viewing audience. I mean, obviously, the U.S. isn't the only pay-per-view buying audience, but it's the largest one. And everybody's used to, and even in the countries outside, everybody's just used to the fights are on at this time, and just it's a struggle to re-educate the audience to going, and then they sit down Saturday night to watch the fight, and you're like, what do you mean it already happened? Like, what are you talking about? So yeah, from what look, it is a shame because man, I've told you before, like, I don't know how anybody in the UK becomes an MMA fan. Like, you know what I mean? Having to stay up in the middle of the night. It was a shame, but I get it. From a business perspective, I do get it. I do understand it. They did sell out the building. So I mean, apparently it's
Mm.
okay. They're gonna find 17,000 people that are willing to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But I hope you can get some primetime shows over there too, man. I really do, because it is a challenge, man. It's difficult to come in to start a night of fights at like midnight. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean there are two slam dunk fight night main event bookings they can make if they wanted to do that. They could do Leon versus Ian Gary. They could do Leon versus MVP. So either one of those fights is now feasible. Either one of those fights could headline anywhere in the UK.
Lights up.
If they wanted to go and do one in Dublin, I know the arena size is a bit of an issue, but you could do the 3 arena. You could do Ian Gary and Leon in the 3 arena if you really wanted
I
to.
think so. Think so.
I think that would check a box, and it would show we've come back to Ireland for the first time in years and all the rest of it. So that would be good. But just a quick note on the arena. You mentioned 17,000 in the arena. Hell of an arena, mate. Really,
Yeah.
really
Brand new, right?
top draw facility. Really, really good. And from a media standpoint, you would have loved the internet connection. It was outstanding.
Amazing.
500 megabyte upload speed, mate. It was insane.
What? I mean, look,
yeah,
that's some inside baseball right there. But yes, as media members, like, Wi-Fi is like, I mean, I need reliable power, and I need a steady internet connection. If I got that, I can work from anywhere. You can put me in a closet. It's fine. I'll work. As long as I got good Wi-Fi and power, I'm good to go.
It was terrible all week. Absolutely terrible all week. We got into the arena. I was like, okay, let's see what we've got. UK fight night. This is going to be dreadful, like it always is. 800 up, 500. Sorry, 800 down, 500 up. It's like, that will do. That'll do nicely. But yeah. but moving on from that very sort of inside baseball talk, as you just said, it's been a crazy few weeks. Like we had UFC on the Saturday night. I was at Cage Warriors on the Thursday night, and we'll pivot into your weekend as well, last weekend. But I was at Cage Warriors on Thursday night. Anybody who's listening to this who has not watched the co-main event of Cage Warriors 175 in Manchester between Michael Pagani and Mason Jones, finish this show, fire up Fight Pass, and watch. It's one of the best fights you'll see this year. Unbelievable stuff, and an amazing venue to watch fights, John. I mean, it's proper old school stuff. It's like a big warehouse.
Nice.
Everyone's on floor level, and I was watching the fight. So I had Big Phil DeFreeze with me, who may or may not have had a beer or two. We had Shemrock from Octagon. He was there. Managed to have a chat with him. A few other guys knocking around. I think Luke Riley was in the building. He's going to be on Contender Series very soon. Anybody who doesn't know about that guy is going to find out very soon, as well as Loney Kavanagh is going to be on Contender Series as well. Those two guys are absolute superstars in the making. But loads of people loads of fighters in the building. Mick Parkin was there the day before his weight cut, watching the weight cut is a heavyweight, but he was there watching the fights as well. Great event, really good event, and like these sort of regional level events that they've got on Fight Pass, they're great to be a part of. Because you get to watch the stars of tomorrow today, right? And you see people coming up. As a journalist, it's great. As a fan, it's brilliant. They're more accessible in terms of the ticket prices, and you see some absolute barn burner fights. And for Cage Warriors, where I am, you've got CFFC where you are, and you're the play-by-play man. You get to sit there and call these fights, and more often than not, insanity occurs, right? I mean, how was it last weekend for you?
It was great. Well, once you get done watching that Cage Warriors fight, then I would say pull up CFSC 133 and watch it all if you will, but at least check out the main event. It was great. Robert Watley and Marquez Forrest. It was a historic fight for us. It was the first ever title unification fight we'd ever had for CFFC, because generally we've done a couple interim titles over the years, but generally it's because the champion is like waiting to get a call, or they got a call, something like that. And so they never really they go on, they get signed to the big show, and so we never really have the unification bouts. And this time Robert Watley thought he was going to get the call, and it didn't happen. So he's like, all right, you crowned an interim champ. In the meantime, let me take on this undefeated kid and let's do this. And it was a hell of a fight, man. It was a phenomenal fight back and forth. Great comfort behind performance from Robert Wiley and incredible. Much to my dismay, it was pretty funny, actually. I was actually doing the in-cage interviews for this one too, because CM Punk wasn't there. And I was like, man, kind of what's next? And he was like, PFL. I want to be on the PFL. I'm like, I mean, we're on UFC Fight Pass right now. Are you sure? Like maybe the UFC? He was like, no, I went to the PFL. And I had a couple losses there, and I want to go right that wrong. He's like, so PFL, give me a call. That's where I want to go. I'm like, good on you. But yeah, man, I love it. Working for CFFC, man, it's awesome. I mean, obviously, it was a massive part in my decision to walk away from MMA Junkie after a long time there. Proud of what we built there, taking it from the small little independent website to the Gannett-owned behemoth that it is. But now this is, I mean, there's nothing I love more doing than calling fights, man. It's such an honor. And especially at this level, man. I mean, to be able to see these men and women who are chasing their dream and who are destined to want to be on the big show, and they've got to scratch and claw and get there, and they're finding their way, and they're getting used to the cameras, and they're getting used to interviews, and they're getting used to more attention and just seeing the growth. And man, there's nothing cooler for me than like seeing a guy that I call his fights on CFSC, and then I run into them on UFC Fight Week when they're making their debut. Or for instance, I'll be out in Washington, D.C. In a couple of weeks when Jose Perez makes his PFL debut. I'm going to be out there to see that, our reigning featherweight champion. So I love that, man. I really, really do. I love seeing that level of it. And you're so right. I mean, first of all, it's kind of cool as a fan. It's kind of like, finding a band, before they hit the big stage. I was following them way back when. That's cool. But it is. I mean, honestly, we were joking earlier about the ticket prices. I mean, listen, I love the UFC, man. But man, to be able to afford to bring my family to it, like, I don't know, man. I don't know that I could do it. So I mean, you look at these regional developmental programs. It's really an opportunity to see high quality MMA, at a fraction of the cost, and to see it in your backyard. So if you've got local MMA, whether it be Cage Warriors over in Europe, whether it be CFSC or whatever it be, man, in your neck of the woods, man, I highly recommend people go out and check out a regional show, man. It's a fun. You'll always have a blast. You're going to sit closer than you ever do before. You get to see talented up and coming fighters. It's a blast. So I'm honored to be a part of the CFSC family, and we've got some big things coming this fall, man. We got some announcements coming up that I think are going to really excite some people. Division I college wrestling is coming back, which if you haven't checked out CFFC Match Day, we did a full season of it, the debut season of it last year, and it's coming back. And I'm telling you, I wish I could tease the names of the programs that are in there. Like, there's some big schools in there, like that are really excited to be a part of the program. I mean, they saw what we were able to do with Match Day, and they want to be a part of it. They see that this platform that USC Fight Pass is giving Division I college wrestling, and it's fun, man. To be honest, it made me a bigger fan of college wrestling than I was. I'm on that activity. I'm involved on the production side of it more. Although I did get to commentate a couple of the events along the way, but it's made me a big fan of college wrestling, man. It's really an incredible sport. And obviously we know an incredible base for an MMA fighter.
Just a bit. What this all means is, like, if you don't have a Fight Pass subscription, then you need to get one, because there's so much on there now. Like, it used to just basically be the fight library. That was basically it when it first launched. Now there's just so much. There's so much good MMA from all over the world now, and CFFC and Cage Warriors are right at the top of the tree in terms of what they're producing, and it got Arias in France, and there's a few others knocking around as well. There's some real high quality stuff coming through there.
And let me give a shout out too, man. The UFC on the line program that they do with the gambling breakdown every week, man. I think they do a great job. If you're into sports wagering, they do a phenomenal job breaking it down. The UFC breakdowns they did on our Safe's, man, they do those for the pay-per-views. Man, Safe's technical analysis is just levels above, man, and it's so great to see them break it down. So you're right, man. I mean, there's so much programming on there, and it's not just the UFC library. It's not just the fight organizations. There's a ton of stuff. So I agree. You know what I mean? If you don't have Fight Pass, you're a fight fan, I don't know what you're doing.
There you go. This show was brought to you unofficially by UFC Fight Pass. No, it wasn't really, but no,
it wasn't. But it's true.
It's essential. It's essential stuff. As is following John Morgan on social media. You are John Morgan __ MMA on X or Twitter or whatever we're calling it this week.
Yep.
John Morgan MMA on the gram on Instagram. You can follow me on both of those at Simon Head Sport. Check out rdxsports.com if you want to get your gear. blogs.rdxsports.com for a little bit of combat sports coverage, courtesy of yours truly. And we will see you next week for the RDX Sports podcast. And hopefully, in a month or so's time, we might get Mr. Morgan back on the microphone again to talk about UFC 305. But thanks to John for coming and joining us on this week's episode of the RDX Sports podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you in a week's time.